And hello again, everybody. This is your host, Jerry Serino from the Median Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you being here. And I'm very excited to welcome Susan Swift. She is a pro life attorney in California, a pro life advocate and supporter of this great cause that we are all fighting for. And she is coming on today to share her story, talk about all that she's doing and all that she knows. And there is a great deal, especially with what's going on recently with Massachusetts, and she's going to also share what's happening in the People's Republic of California. Susan, thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me, Jerry. It's really a pleasure to meet you and your audience.
Yes, well, no, the pleasure is all ours because you're taking the time out of your day. As we were talking off air, very short notice, last minute, you agreed to come on, and I'm really grateful for that. And I speak for for our audience that they're grateful as well because I hear from them a lot.
Well,
So
you're a pro-life warrior. You are on the cutting edge. You are right there in your podcast, and when you're basically confronting one of the most important issues, cultural issues of our nation and of our time. So you're absolutely one of the good guys. I'm honored to be here.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Let's start with you. So I always am interested in knowing sort of your background, even the stuff outside of your advocacy. You know, you mentioned that you're a Catholic mom of seven. You're an attorney, all of which is great and very impressive stuff. But I didn't give everything away, right? So just tell us about you, about your background, and kind of what got you to the place you're at now.
Oh, well, let's see. It starts, even before I was born. My mom and dad were, they were fairly devout Christians, but my dad also kind of believed in the zero population growth theory, which was being pushed way back in the 50s and 60s. This is
Mm.
following World War II and the great triumph of good over evil. And then, of course, now they're the environmentalists and the feminists and everything. But basically, what started happening was because the Marxist Nazis were defeated and thrown out. They came over here to California and they started a movement to devalue and to hurt America.
Yeah.
And one of the prongs of that, we're seeing that continuing today, by the way, with how Marxism is using Islam, or maybe Islam is using Marxism. I don't know, but they're basically trying to conquer our culture, which is based on God, right? That we believe that our rights come from God, not government. That it is a Christian nation. We are Judeo-Christian, and so these forces began in the 60s to try to undermine the family and undermine marriage. And specifically, how did they go about it? Just like Satan did. They went after Eve. They went after the woman. And the modern day equivalent of the apple is the pill. And it's the promise that if you restrict your fertility, you'll be more prosperous. You won't be burdened. This was also reflected in Margaret Sanger. I like to do her with a German accent. Margaret Sanger, who believes in the population growth und likes Hitler and eugenics. That's what she was, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
what did she start? She started the Negro Project, which was pitched at Black pastors to convince Black women, that they should not have children, that they should sterilize themselves or reduce their fertility. And so all of that is the background for population control, which is also called zero population growth. Paul Ehrlich's book, which was The Population Bomb. There are going to be too many babies and we'll all starve to death. Therefore, we have to reduce the population. And if you are a responsible person, if you are an American, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, you will reduce your fertility. Where are we seeing that now? That's the environmentalist wackos. That's what they do. We have to save the planet. And whether it's that chick from, oh gosh, what's her name?
Greta?
Yeah, Greta
Thunberg.
Thunberg. Who says, it's going to be all over you. It's all over in 12 years. We've been hearing this from Al Gore for 20 years. The world should have ended already. So you see all of this population growth, the control that started in the 50s and 60s, continued on through Paul Ehrlich and the population boom, if you will, because they wanted to reduce the boomers. Okay, My mom and
Mhm.
dad kind of bought into that and only had two, zero population growth.
Yeah.
And here I am coming along and listening to all of this. And so I was in a way kind of naturally predisposed to the idea that, well, women should control their own bodies. I sure believe that 100%. They should control their own bodies. And rape is not one of those things that is allowed, right? We should never allow any man to ever hurt a woman in any way. So of course
Right.
a woman has full autonomy over her body. But again, the feminists have corrupted that. And now they're actually saying that woman a control over her body is control over her health care. And here they have ceded that control to who? White coats, the doctors. And that's why we've seen a whole nationwide event that predated Roe versus Wade and all of that, which was these were doctors. You have to understand what Roe versus Wade set up, which was it was a the system whereby a doctor was going to determine whether it was appropriate or not for a woman to have an abortion, and this was all normalized. Right now,
Mhm.
that's been defeated because
Yep.
of the election of Trump and because of a lot of prayer, a lot of marching, and so now the federal guidelines for abortion have been defeated. And yet now the battle is with the states. And what are the states doing? They can either legalize or not legalize abortion on demand. And now what we've seen in Massachusetts is no holds barred. What used
Mhm.
to be safe, legal, and rare, what used to be Mario Cuomo's struggle as a Catholic to say, well, I'm a Catholic and abortion is wrong, but I'm also a civil servant and I have to put my religious beliefs underneath my civil servant. Yeah, I have to do that. So
Yeah.
I have to allow abortion, all of that. And now we have a Catholic, I use that air quotes, Catholic in Massachusetts, a governor who is giddily signing a bill to allow for abortion on demand by white coats again, by white
Right.
coats. It's not the woman. Do you understand? You've got to see what they're doing is they're allowing the doctors to make the decision. It's actually touted as women have the right to their own health care. Well, that's Barbara Streisand, as Rush Limbaugh
Sure.
would say. That's BS because what it is it shifts the decision making to the doctors, the white coats, and the doctor can then decide, well, if this abortion is warranted for mental reasons, whatever dollar amount it takes, right? So now in Massachusetts, you kind of have the right, if you go to the right doctor, if you know the right doctor, you can have an abortion up until through viability up until birth. And that's all started back in the 50s and 60s. And it was started with, moms and dads like my mom and dad who were trying to be responsible and protect the environment and protect the future and restricted their own fertility. So
Yeah.
kind of that's a roundabout way. So what I did is I was predisposed to be pro-abortion. And it was not until I was in law school and it was in first year law, and there was a case that we have to prepare, and I don't remember the name of the case. I don't remember anything other than the epiphany that I had, which was this case was about a baby who had been born with kidney problems and it desperately needed a kidney transplant, and there weren't any matching donors, et cetera, et cetera. So the
Mhm.
parents conceived another child and the baby was born and it was a match for the first child, the boy. So what they were going to do is and this makes sense from a parental perspective. They're desperate to save their children, so they were going to use the kidney from the newborn baby and transplant it into the older brother so that they'd save both children. I'm not, I can't weigh in on that. That's a very horrible medical decision, right, to make. But it
Yeah.
struck me all of a sudden as a pro-abortion person. I realized that baby, the little newborn, might need its own kidneys. What if it has the same fatality? Who can decide how you take somebody's organs and you give it to the new baby? How do you do this? And all of a sudden, I realized that child has its own rights, separate and distinct from the mother or the father and everything. And so my worldview changed. And shortly after that, then as I let obviously throughout abortion, I thought, well, that's completely wrong, and began more of my Christian journey. I converted to becoming Catholic, married a Catholic who's just a wonderful man, and completely embraced the Catholic teaching, which is any form of abortion is morally wrong. The only time that there's a very narrow exception is when it is to save the life of the mother, when literally the doctor has to make that decision, and it's imminent. When if the only choice is between saving a mother and the child, the doctor might have to make the choice between the mother or the child. But that choice is so incredibly rare that
Yeah.
it almost doesn't exist. It's far less than 1%. But that, and it is always wrong. It is always gravely immoral to kill a human being out of convenience or mental health or any of these reasons. So in any event, that's kind of my journey from
Yeah.
being young and raised in the kind of the 70s and 80s, and women now, more power, all of that, and realizing what this is. The greatest gift God can give you is life, and he shares with women this beautiful gift of procreation, of creating new life and bringing new souls to earth. And here we have a cabal of liberal women cackling gleefully over the power to kill.
Yeah.
The morality is just to me it's shocking. So
Yeah.
instead of empowering women to what is our fundamental power? What's our superpower as women? Creation, fecundity, life. That's what we do. That is, and men cannot have children, even if they're trans. It doesn't matter. They still can't have babies. We're the
Well,
only
the
ones
left
that can
thinks
have
they
babies.
can.
Well, I know that's
Right.
because they're mentally disordered, and we
Yeah,
have to
for
pray.
sure.
We have to pray for those people who have the mental disorder because it's
Yeah.
wrong. But they can't have children, so that's what women do. That is our superpower. And here we are. We have some women who are taking that and turning it 180 degrees around and calling it a burden and calling it something wrong. And now we have laws that are enabling the white coats, the doctors, to kill, to end that power. It's mind-boggling. So that's where we are, just in 30 years, 40 years since
Yeah.
the pill and all of that. It's really done an amazing turnaround. But anyway,
Yeah.
I rambled. Thanks,
Yeah.
bud.
No, that's okay. That's great. So I've done a lot on the Massachusetts case of,
The bill.
because we were able to see her sign, Maura Healey is her name, is the governor.
Yeah.
And as you said, she is Catholic. And I mentioned that Kelsey Reinhardt from, right. Yeah. Quotes, quote
Yeah, air
unquote.
quotes. She's not a Catholic. She's not
Well,
a
neither
Catholic.
is Biden, right? Neither is
Well, of
Biden.
course.
Neither
Or
is
Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi.
Or
Any of
Cuomo, or
these.
any of these
Yeah.
people who profess to be Catholic. Because I'll tell you what, you look it up it's the Catholic Catechism. You can go look it up yourself. You automatically excommunicate yourself when you do that. So
Yeah.
she's left the church. She's just I guess we call them rhinos. Rhino, is Republican in name only.
Yeah.
Well, they're called Kinos, which is CINO, Catholic in name only. They're just doing it for the branding. They're
Yeah.
just saying, "Ooh, I'm Catholic. That means I'm a good person. I'm
Right.
virtue signaling. I'm Catholic." No, you're not. You excommunicated yourself. You're not Catholic.
And she's
Demonic.
also, any of these individuals, they're also not Christian, right? Forget the
No, of
specific
course they're not.
denomination. There's no denomination that should accept them, right?
Of
In
course
these,
not.
but what I was going to say is that's we saw her sign that. We saw people behind her applauding. We saw this with Chris. You were talking about Cuomo, Mario Cuomo, but his son. Andrew Cuomo, when he was governor of New York, did the same thing. There was a standing ovation for it, which is sick. But here in Ohio and other states that are relatively conservative, we voted and put abortion in our Constitution.
What do you say when you put abortion in your Constitution? What does that mean?
It made it legal. It made it legal, and it was in the Constitution. So it's hard to break. It's hard to break that, right?
Yeah.
And we're a relatively conservative state. I mean, we have conservative, Republican governors more often than not, and so on. But how do we make heads or tails of that? We have what's going on in Massachusetts, a very liberal state. They always vote Democrat. They even voted for Kamala Harris, right? I mean, California too. I mean,
What
how
can you
you
do,
can
right?
vote for
Yeah, we're in
someone
the
like her.
People's Republic, like you said, of California.
Yeah,
We've got, Gavin Newsom, who's just, crazy, crazy guy.
yeah,
And
insane.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I guess my question is how sometimes it's very disheartening when we see, yes, Massachusetts, California, but Ohio.
yeah. Well, you
Ohio.
shouldn't be no, you shouldn't be disheartened. This is the natural progression of victory of the war against abortion, which was started many, many years ago and was carried banners and marching in front of the Supreme Court with the March for Life, all of that. That has been people didn't think that we were going to end abortion, federally, nationally in our lifetime, and yet we did, and yet
Mhm.
we did. And that was just a couple of years ago. Was it 2 years ago? What, 24?
Yeah,
Right? 2024. So it's only been 2 years, a little 2.5 years since we ended the right to an abortion federally, nationally. Of
yeah,
course, the minions of darkness and evil are going to go to the states because we have a federalist system, we have a republic. So now that like rats, they've scurried off of the national and they're all in the ships of state, right? And that's
right,
why they've infiltrated whether it's Ohio or wherever, because they're using the laws of the states to go ahead and advance their death cult. But this is a victory because now it's more local. That means you, as a pro-life person, you have more power because the closer you get to local, the more power you have. So this means you can speak out. People should be running for office. Pro-life people should be running for office to kick out these pro-abort incumbents or the ones who are wanting to come in, because that gives us more power. We don't have to depend on the federal government now to
mhm,
to to advance our cause. We'd like that. I would love it if we could have a constitutional amendment to the federal constitution. That would be great, to end
yeah,
all abortion. That would be great. But you know what? Again, this is a progression. It started way back in 50s and 60s, like I said, with the legalization of the pill and all of these things, and then it progressed with safe, legal, and rare, and we have to have abortions because it protects a woman. Blah blah blah. I'm surprised they haven't said that. Well, I know that. Look, abortion stops little carbon footprints too, doesn't it? I'm sure
mm.
it's linked to the
Oh, it is.
environment.
It has to
Of
be.
course,
Well, it's
of course.
always amazing to me that, when you look at the left,
Population control.
yeah, it's the left that buys into the global warming stuff, right?
Well, they
Eh
use it as a tool. Look, these are
yeah,
all
yeah,
tools of the leftists, the Marxist, socialist leftists. They've always been this way because
yeah,
they want to control you. They don't believe you are smart enough to control yourself and to be independent and run your own businesses. They have to help you, and they've used that for decades and decades. I mean, it was the Democrats who thwarted the certain just shortly after the Civil War, when we were having Reconstruction and we were trying to make sure that blacks had full rights and could vote and all of these things, right? Who undermined that? Ah, yes, that's right. It's the Democrats. They're always about controlling the population and keeping one segment of it down if you could, because they want to use them. Because what do they believe? They believe in centralized control over all people. That was the whole message of the COVID fiasco and the hoax and the masks. They wanted to see how many of us would obey and comply with the government. And a lot of us failed that test. A lot of us took the shots. A lot of us put on the masks, right? Because the government, big government, said we had to.
yep,
So, but we're winning. Do you see how much we're winning? This isn't abortion is not a federal issue anymore. It's now a state's issue and states' rights. That means you and I and all of your listeners have more to do and more opportunities to win. And all we have to do is take it one representative at a time, right? One law at a time, one local representation at a time, right? Who's on your local city council? You got 4 pro aborts. Okay, get one off, right? One of them,
right,
replace one. That's all you got to do. And every 2 years or every 4 years, whatever your city runs, that's what you do. You go all the way down to dog catcher. You make sure that dog catcher is pro life,
yeah.
right? I mean, that's what
I'm
you
with
do.
you.
You make sure every government official, whether they're elected or hired, right, or bureaucrat, make sure they're pro-life. How do you do that? Well, you make noise respectfully and peacefully, but you
Mhm.
go to the meetings. You put eyes on these people, and you say, "What are you voting for? What is this? And it means you just have to read. You just have to read the bill. Just like there's so many brave men and women who've stood up in front of school boards and have exposed the pedophile transgender agenda by reading children's books and saying, well,
Yeah.
these are basically sexual manuals here, and these are in our kindergarten schools. What are you doing? And they embarrass these representatives with cameras, by just we are all citizen journalists now. All you have to do is fill out the little form and use your 2 minutes very wisely, peacefully and wisely, and you just videotape it and you put it up on X, you put it up on Facebook if they let you. But you know what I mean? That's what you do. And more people are seeing this, like this governor in Massachusetts gleefully signing this abortion bill. Everybody knows her name now, Maura Healey. Everybody in Massachusetts, everybody in the nation knows Governor Maura Healey. And you can protest against her. You can call her office and ask her, why did you vote for this? Why do you say you're Catholic? So she's been exposed like a cockroach in the light, right? And every one of those, little liberal women who are behind her, we can find out all of their names. They're elected representatives. Is that who you want representing you? Well, Massachusetts, you have a choice, don't you? I believe in choice, that kind of choice.
Yeah.
But we elect people that represent our values. That's what we need to do. You vote them out of office. That's what November's for. And that's why you have to run. And that's why you have to stay on top of government, because they're like a big hive of cockroaches. They'll get away with it if you let them.
Yeah. I
Anyways,
want
that's
to ask.
victory.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you, Susan, as I'm looking at the clock and we have like 3 minutes left. The time flies. No, it's great. Wonderful. I'm just letting you be aware, both of us be aware of the time. Um, when we think of Abraham Lincoln, we think of slavery, right? That was his issue. That's what he wanted. That's what he took on. He had
He was a
other
liberator.
opinions. Yeah,
He was the great
he had
liberator,
other policies
emancipator.
and beliefs and other things like that. Sure. Um, do you think that we can have a president or a governor of a state that ran solely on the issue of abortion? Said, I am going to end this evil, this injustice, and that's my issue. Yes, I have a stand on these other things, but this is my issue. Would that be smart, or would that be something we should do?
Well, I think there's so many different issues, and to be a single issue voter, what it does is it hamstrings us, right? If I have, and unfortunately, because we don't have enough brave men and women running for office to do this, so sometimes they have to moderate their position. So unfortunately, right now in this battle to end abortion and to correct our nation, we have to choose sometimes the lesser of two evils, which is very, very uncomfortable. There's no good answer for that. So you almost have to kind of souse out. You almost have to be a political whisperer. Are they, because the people who are pro-life, they can't run on that one issue, it'll sink them. So they have to run on you have to look for other conservative earmarks, if you will. But the flip side is also true. If you can find a candidate who can bravely proclaim that he or she is against abortion, well, then his or her values are going to align 95% with yours anyway. Even if he says, well, maybe healthcare should be expanded to include, I don't know, whatever. Those are minor issues. So it's a bellwether. But we also have to be able to find out the truth of these, these candidates. Like, if they start moderating, AOC is probably trying to moderate now. She's trying to, inject herself and freeze her eggs so that maybe she's viable to run as a president. She's ditched her boyfriend of 4 years. Guess she didn't want babies with him, right? So she's kind of cleaning up her act to maybe move to the center a little bit. That's why we can't be fooled. We have to look at the candidates who are running. And yes, the litmus test can be the pro-life agenda. So any candidate that wants to at least walk it back from where Massachusetts is and say, well, I think it should be limited to, the life of the mother, not the mental health of the mother, life of the mother. Then maybe you've got a good candidate. So you've got to be smart, though, right? You have to be smart and look at these candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Susan Swift, thank you so much. Your knowledge and wisdom is very, very helpful. Grateful for you being here and sharing your opinions and beliefs. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jerry. Do not give up the fight. We are winning.
We are. And thank all of you for listening to this episode of From the Median Podcast. We will see you next time.